Um, all right, so um, like in Canada, a lot of people talk about, well, especially like politicians, they talk about how like Canada's like a very like compassionate country, and it's very like um, it's like very inclusive or diverse and all that. But 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 like I right, especially like now with like COVID and all the like the jab mandates like being forced, like being like imposed on people, like I don't see like any like compassion at all. There's very like little of it. So I wanna pull up an article right now, so they'll help explain it all. So this is an article from Spencer Fernando. It says compassion is impossible to act on without strength. So this article is like, so it's not like a recent article. It's from like August. So it says many Canadians like to think of our country as a compassionate place, but without the strength to defend ourselves or others, what good is that compassion? Is Canada a compassionate nation? The initial and instinctual answer is to say yes. After all, Canadians certainly often sound compassionate. Our political leaders talk about compassion all the time. In an obvious nod to market research, companies run ads in Canada all the time, appealing to the sense that we are compassionate or nice, without even thinking without even thinking much about it. Compassion and Canada seem to go hand in hand. But is it true? Are we actually a compassionate nation? Or are we a weak nation that is fooling ourselves into thinking our weakness is somehow a virtue? And it says weakness makes true compassion impossible. In response to the in response to the ISIS K attack in Afghanistan, which killed 12 U.S. service members and roughly 60 Afghan citizens, Mike Cernovich tweeted this. This is what weakness gets you. There's a tweet from him. And it says, he is absolutely right. He he is absolutely right. Say whatever you want about Donald Trump, but he certainly understood that the President of the United States shouldn't pretend to be some sort of passive observer to events. With the world's most powerful military and dealing with foreign regimes, often run by brutal human beings, the threat of force and the willingness to use that force ends up making actual peace more likely. By contrast, the Biden administration is giving off the impression of weakness, and weakness emboldens brutal people to take advantage. That's where the idea of peace through strength comes from, an acknowledgement that any potential adversary has to first take you seriously before you can negotiate in anything resembling good faith. While Canada is nowhere near the power level of the United States, we are still a wealthy, technologically advanced nation. There's no excuse for us to be wholly dependent on the United States militarily, and there's no excuse for us to be abandoning our own citizens and Afghans who helped our troops. And yes, we are straight up abandoning them, as this letter from the Canadian government to people in the country makes clear. Dear citizen and permanent resident of Canada, you are receiving this message because you are registered with the Government of Canada's registration of Canadians abroad. I've contacted I've contacted the Emergency Watch and Response Center in Ottawa, or I've had your information forwarded to our department. Canada's evacuation operations have now ended. At this time, no further Canadian evacuation flights are being planned. Please note that we will continue to closely monitor the situation in order to determine what options may become available now that Canadian military evacuation flights have ended. The Government of Canada recognizes that there are a number of Canadian citizens and permanent residents who are still in Afghanistan. Until such time as the security situation stabilizes, the Government of Canada is urging Canadian citizens and permanent residents to shelter in place, be mindful of the security environment, and where possible, take the necessary steps to ensure your security and that of your family. That's the end of the letter, and then it says they could have saved some time and simply wrote, "You're all on your own." Further, despite knowing for many months when the US planned to leave, thus giving Canada ample room to have gotten our people and helpers out of the country, the Trudeau government has said they had no choice but to shut everything down once the US started pulling out of the country. But other countries aren't doing the same thing. For example, the UK is continuing flights out of Afghanistan to get people out of there. That's because the UK makes a decent level of investment in their armed forces, while Canada has let our investment languish for decades. This is where the fundamental opposition between weakness and compassion comes in. As Canadians, we can talk all we want about how nice or how compassionate we are, but all that talk is worthless. When we had to actually act on our compassion and turn it into reality, we failed. And we failed because we are weak. Sure, we can directly blame Trudeau, and he does indeed need to be defeated for his incompetence and dishonesty. But it's more than just him. Canadians have for years simply gone along with the lack of investment in our armed forces. Many Canadians think we can spend our money better elsewhere and assume that the military will just take care of itself, and are then shocked to see how unprepared and dependent on others we are. Not a serious country. The fact is, Canada can no longer. The fact is, Canada can no longer really call itself a serious country. Not when Justin Trudeau represents us, not when we go around pushing naive wokeness that makes us a laughing stock around the world, not when we have basically zero capability to defend ourselves or help our allies, and not when our words are nothing but empty platitudes we can never truly act upon. Yeah, like Canada also has like almost like little to no influence internationally as well. So like no one's like the other nations are not going to take Canada seriously. So yeah, I don't even remember the last time like Canada was even mentioned internationally. Just shows like how all right. I think something happened. So let me pull up the article. So Right, so just like start from here. It says not a serious country. The fact is, Canada can no longer call itself can no longer really call itself a serious country. Not when Justin Trudeau represents us. Now when we go around pushing naive wokeness, that makes us a laughing stock around the world. Now when we have basically zero capability to defend ourselves or help our allies, and not when our words are nothing but empty platitudes we can never truly act upon. Like Canada has like little to no influence internationally, so like no nation's gonna like take anything Canada says seriously or like I don't remember the last time like Canada was even mentioned internationally. It just shows like how like little to no influence we even have. So and then it says not a serious country. So no, then it says not a compassionate country. I'm going to go a step further and say that not only is Canada unable to act on our compassion, we aren't really that compassionate a country either. I say that because when there's a gigantic gap between what people say and what people do, you have to look at the actions. Letting our nation become weak and unserious was a choice. It was a choice made by Canadians who backed politicians who told them everything they wanted to hear. And it was a choice made by those who let our armed forces crumble. When that choice was made repeatedly, other choices were made as well. Choosing to be weak means being unable to defend our own citizens. Choosing to be weak means being unable to defend our allies. Choosing to be weak means being unable to defend those who helped us. Like like the many Afghans who put their lives and their families' lives on the line for Canadian troops. And choosing to be weak means we have decided that empty platitudes will be the sum total of our contribution, a contribution that is of course rendered meaningless when push comes to shove. Yeah, exactly, and yeah, like we can't even defend Canada can't even defend its own citizens as like the two Michaels who recently like came back to Canada like they were in they were detained in China for like um I think two almost like 2 or 3 years, and if it wasn't for like I think the US like intervening, then like they wouldn't have the two Michaels wouldn't have been able to come back to Canada. And so yeah, and then like during that time like Trudeau wasn't really doing anything to bring them back. He was just saying how like their detention was like arbitrary or something like that, and like how the government was like working hard to get them back, but he didn't really do anything. And even when the Michaels did like come back, Trudeau was acting as if like he was the one that was able to bring them back, but in reality, it was the United States. It was the United States that I think was able to I don't know come to some type of agreement maybe or whatever to bring the two Michaels back. So can't Trudeau had nothing to do with that. So it shows like how like Canada can't even like defend its own citizens. Next it says look where we are now. This is a clarifying moment. We have coasted along on empty words and good feelings for so long. We've bought into so much woke BS that many Canadians are absolutely horrified to find out that, lo and behold, military force and the willingness to use it still matters far more than being nice people. The shock that many feel at this reality and the shock many feel watching Canada abandon our own people and those who helped our people can lead in one or of two directions. We can simply wish it all away, go back into our cocoon of being the nice country, and continue down the path of weakness, or we can wake up, recognize that this world is still often a harsh and brutal place, and decide to become a stronger nation that can actually act upon what we claim to value. So, so that's the end of the article. All right, so that's the end of the article, and yeah, he's right. Yeah, he's right. Like Canada, like when it comes to like standing up for itself or defending its own interests, like that's something Canada has been unable to do, and many people think that this whole niceness or the fact that Canadians like are nice people, like somehow that will help, and like that will somehow like make other countries take us seriously. But but instead it's just proving to like to be a problem because a lot of these countries, they're because the other countries they're looking out for their own interests, so they don't like they're not gonna like pander to Canada or think that just because Canadians are nice that somehow or just because like Canada's or Canada's like a compassionate or nice country that other countries will be compassionate or nice as well. So yeah, and he also explains as well how it's pretty much made Canada like the laughing stock of the world with this whole like wokeness that's being pushed and like this whole like compassionate stuff that they're like that just shows like how easy like Canada's easy to control and that how like we're not actually able to not we're not actually able to have like true compassion all that if we're not if Canada and Canadians aren't able to defend themselves or itself. So yeah, like look at the situation with the two Michaels. Like our government wasn't even able to bring them back. It was only like until the United States. It was only like until the United States was able to, I think, was able to get some type of agreement between like between like the between them and China. Like otherwise, like the two Michaels, they wouldn't have been able to return to Canada. And Trudeau's acting like as if like he was the one that brought them back, but in reality, he didn't really do anything to bring them back. So that's just like one example of how like this whole like this whole like niceness is just like it's not it's like becoming a problem for Canada as as many countries like don't take Canada seriously and they see us as a laughing stock. So yeah, and and the fact that we have like little to no like international like recognition as well also shows that because because um because Canada's hardly like mentioned internationally like by the international media. So I don't even remember when Canada was mentioned like the last time Canada was mentioned internationally. So yeah, that's the end of the article. I can close that now. So yeah, so like yeah, Spencer Fernando said in the article like compassion means nothing. Like means nothing if you're unable to defend yourselves or the country. So so yeah, and um, I really hope people start realizing that, and hopefully like hopefully like Canadians will start to understand that being nice all the time doesn't get you anywhere, and that all it does is just it'll just make other like people or other countries just take advantage of you. So yeah, that's everything I wanted to talk about, and I'll be signing off. So I'll be signing off now.